Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Manny Talks Shooting, a podcast where I, Manny, talk to whoever I want to in the shooting industry. Today, we have my friend, John Chinchen, on the show today. John, how are you doing today, sir?
Not too bad, man. How are you?
I am fantastic. It's a great, wonderful Tuesday morning.
That it is.
It
The sun is
is.
shining, and it's a good day. Good day to be on a podcast.
It is. It'd be almost nice to be out shooting today, too, but
Maybe after.
maybe. Well, not for me. I've got to go to work later, but besides that, thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. It's going to be a fun time, guys. We're going to talk about John. John is our local hot dog badass McMotherfucker GM and CO. I think you might be the only CO GM in Michigan, but I'm not for sure because I can't find that information.
I don't want to speak incorrectly either, but I mean I have not seen any other COGMs at any local matches, at least in the state of Michigan. So, to my knowledge, I think I am the only one.
And I honestly think USPSA should be able to put that out, how many GMs are in each region or section. I mean, it'd be nice.
Even if they just had like a class breakdown for like each state or like each area, like you were saying, just so competitors know like where all the heat is amongst the country.
Yeah, that's true. You travel a lot across the southern part of our state. You are like almost every match, every other weekend, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, for the entire last year, I was in my fourth year of medical school, and I found myself with a lot more free time than I had the last 3 years. So I was like, I'm going to make the most of this, and I'm going to try and shoot as many matches as I can. So just tried to hit all of them every month, and we've got some pretty good matches on the Southwest side. So
Yes, we do. You actually have only been shooting for about 2 years now in USPSA, or at least as a member.
Yeah. So I joined USPSA in spring of 2019. So it's just been a little over 2 years for me.
It is fantastic because you do not look like you've been shooting for 2 years, sir.
I appreciate that.
We first met back a couple months ago. I think it was about 2 months to the day now. We met a South Kent match with through our mutual friend Chris, the bearded man bun lover.
Yeah, Chris is he's a great guy.
He is. Surprisingly, for someone I've never met before in person before that match, he was super helpful and super friendly and kind. So I always appreciate talking to Chris.
That's the kind of guy he is. Yep.
I'm kind of jealous of his day job, though.
I actually don't know what he does for his day job. I just I follow him on Instagram, and I see him shooting and lifting weights, and I'm like, man, this guy lives a life.
He does. He gets to travel he's like a traveling photographer, and he's done a bunch of like work, and it's really cool because he gets to go to cool places, and I'm jealous.
It's the kind of guy we need in like a leadership position for USPSA, maybe in like the marketing department.
Yeah, or the president. I don't know. Or Hopkins. I mean,
or literally anybody else.
Anyone under the age of 50, at least.
Yeah, I agree.
Or someone who's actually taking the sport seriously, because I know there's a couple older people who actually take it pretty seriously, but we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see.
Well, John, tell the people who you are and how did you get into shooting?
So, I mean, I can just talk about like how I got into shooting, because I think it's the most relevant part of this podcast. It's why people are listening. They want to learn about shooting. So I think like a lot of people, I'm a relatively young guy, especially like in, the world of shooting. You get a lot of older people. But I ended up getting my CPL when I was 21, and also purchased my first handgun when I was 21. It was just something that was kind of important to me. I wanted to be able to, like a lot of people that get into shooting, protect myself and protect the people that I care about. So I think there's a progression that like a lot of people take. Like I think most people just don't straight up get into like competition. Like you get into like the whole, tactical part, and then like the whole, you follow guys like Dave Spalding, or like a lot of like the military guys, and like, oh, they must be really good shooters. So you like kind of follow them and copy them. And then eventually on your path, you reach competition shooting as like the pinnacle of what good shooting actually is. So, myself, like many others, kind of followed that path. So I got my CPL. I got into like the tactical stuff for a little bit. Never took any classes, but just, I don't know. I was working on on stuff like, the sub second draw from concealment, and shooting targets that were like under 3 yards or 10 feet or whatever, because that's when like most dangerous situations happen, or whatever you want to call them. And then I don't know, that went on for like a year until I was 22. Then I got really busy with other stuff in my life, just like college, and I was really into like endurance sports back in the day, and just handguns and shooting just kind of fell by the wayside. So it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I really picked up the gun again and was like, sorry, my notification thing just popped up. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I, picked up the gun again and was like, I want to get really, really good at this and just see how far I can take it. So found competition shooting, and haven't really looked back since.
Now, did you find like USPSA on your own, or did you have like a gateway friend who got you into the sport?
I kind of found it on my own. And again, like this is just doing through, searches online, like, I'm always about like learning to do something right the first time, and then also learning how to do it like to the best of the ability, like as fast as I possibly can. So like everything that I was like searching on like Google or whatever was saying like, if you really want to get good with a gun, you should get into USPSA. And like that's when I was looking at like a lot of people, like you have like the two major leagues of competition shooting. You have IDPA and USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
And me, who didn't really know anything about either branch, I was like, well, which one should I do? And it seemed that the more I dug into it, the more people were saying that like the true good shooters are all in USPSA. So I was like, all right, that's going to be the one I commit to. And yeah, so I just kind of found it through the internet.
Well, that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, I found USPSA almost the same way, through the internet, through social media, following a bunch of people that I followed, and they said, if you want to be good, you better go compete. And I mean, that's
Yep.
so damn true. I mean, I th- I wish more people would get out of like the tactical side and join the competition, because they'd be a lot more better, or realize that their imaginary ego gloat skills like are nothing compared to like Bobby McB class or Charlie McC class guys who are actually like are trying to be really good, instead of the guys who are like, I'm good, I got my duty rig and
Dude, absolutely. I remember like when I was first getting started, everybody is always looking for ways to like measure themselves, at whatever skill they're trying to get good at. So I was looking for different things out there that would be like good indicators of like, well, how actually good am I with my gun? So like I was looking at things like the FBI qualification standards, like standard like police drills and stuff. And like I remember my first like 6 months of shooting, I was maxing out like the FBI pistol qualification course, just because like it's really easy to do. And I'd go out to the range and I'd get 100% on it or whatever, like do it in like the, because it's all like par times that you just have to get good hits on. And the par times are just like, your grandma can meet these par times.
Yeah.
And, you leave the range and you're like, oh, I'm a really good shooter because I can max out the FBI qualification test. And it's like, in reality, when you get into the competition world, you're literally no better than like a D-class shooter. Like you go to your first match or whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm actually just trash at shooting. Because it's a totally different game once you start incorporating movement, thinking on the move, reloads, pressure, just all this stuff and those are just like some of the benefits of competition.
Oh, absolutely. Competition makes everybody better. And I don't know, I got hooked, and I love it too. It's fantastic. It takes a lot of time and mental energy to be putting all the extra effort in to actually be good, and like do the daily dry fire or twice a day dry fire, go to the gym, eat a little bit better, and putting effort into getting better. And then I know there's the guys out there who show up once a month and it's their fun hobby, and that's fine for them too, but eventually they're going to peak, and then they're like, well, why are you beating me now? Well, I put a lot more effort into this.
You constantly have to look for ways to improve. And I mean, like you just said, if you want to be at the top of the sport, if you want to be doing this at a really high level, it really is a lifestyle. It's not just like going to the range once a week and popping off some rounds. It's, like you said, your diet, exercise, mentality, it's all that stuff combined.
It absolutely is. John, have you taken any formal training from anyone?
I've never had any formal training, so I've never been to a class or had any instruction. I just kind of, taught myself how to do everything.
Wow, but that puts you on another level, sir. You're already up here now. You're up here now.
I don't know about that. I learned really well by watching others, I guess, and I think it's you find that a lot. I've watched other podcasts and I've heard other people say the same thing, where you kind of find top shooters that you want to emulate. And that's the great thing about social media and YouTube now is like you can slow people down to like a quarter speed if you want. You can really break down like how they draw, how they transition, how they move, and it's like and you can start incorporating all that into your own game. So
Absolutely. The power of the internet, thinking about nowadays, someone getting into the sport now compared to 5, even 10 years ago has a leg up just because I have this phone and I can look Keith Garcia or Max Michel and, any top level
yeah,
shooter and figure out how Max is moving, or overlay, say you run the same match and like your area 5 and you can put your run against Max Michel's run and see where he's gaining full 2 seconds on you on a stage
yeah,
because he's a freaking beast. Besides,
exactly. How he's winning nationals by like 30 seconds overall.
Yeah, and that's the power of the internet, and I love it. And even like I said, I think it's even great to find like local people like you, the really good shooters like you and Chris. And crap, most of the guys on our squad at South Kent were assassins.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like the worst on the squad, but it was
No,
like,
man, I don't know about that. You
no,
put
that's
in a lot of effort, and I feel like so I was creeping through your Insta actually last night. It looks like you've made just so much progress, like compared to even like a couple of years ago, and
mhm.
the shooter that you are now compared to when you were first getting started.
Yeah, and luckily I've been able to have my ego checked since I've started this. I know that I'm always improving, but I don't put ego into anything. I'm like, if someone's got something for me to work on, I'll try it. I don't care.
Right.
It's like one of those things like, oh, I could be doing this a little bit better. So I do, and
Hopefully I can.
I give it an
Yeah, go ahead.
effort. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, hopefully I can, give some of those little nuggets that you're talking about, even in this podcast, because at least in my opinion, if you can get like one or two good things out of watching something for an hour, it's worth your time.
Absolutely. And I'm an addict to podcasts myself. Like I'll listen to most of the shooting ones. There's a couple I don't listen to just because they get long winded or whatnot. But like
Hmm.
the After Dark is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
The Paracast I like listening to more for humor effects because they're very funny.
Okay.
And there's a couple of good ones. I like listening to Steve Anderson. Sometimes Steve gets samey, so it's not as powerful sometimes. And
Right.
there's a couple other ones, but to name a few, those are some good ones that I like listening to. Now, are you planning on always staying in carry optics, or are you ever planning on switching divisions?
Um, I think I was very fortunate to get into carry optics in the first place. Just so the reason I ended up getting into carry optics was because it was the most affordable division for me. When I was getting into shooting, all I had to do was throw a red dot onto my Glock 19.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't think my Glock 19 would have been competitive in production. So I was like, well, if I put a dot on this, I can shoot this carry optics division. And since I got into it in 2019, it's just like it's been on a massive rise. Every month you get more and more carry optic shooters. So I'm probably going to stay in it for the foreseeable future, at least for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
The
So
only other division I can see myself shooting is open,
we
to be honest with you.
just throw a comp on it. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
But honestly, they're so close now. I mean, besides that one has major power factor and magwells and comps,
Yep.
they're so similar. It's almost like we're shooting open minor.
Absolutely. So it's like, to me, there's 0 point in switching to open right now.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they become differentiated in the future, I'm just going to stick with carry optics.
Mm-hmm. It's honestly, I think we'll see more, unless things change in the organization. I think we'll see more people leave open and go to carry optics because the guns are a little less finicky and the ammo is more reliable, especially
Yep.
with the crap primers we're getting right now. And
I agree.
if you can find primers, because they're still unobtainium.
Yep.
Now, you said you started with a Glock 19. You want to, but I know you're not shooting a Glock 19 now, right?
Correct. So I should do Glock 45 now.
Ooh, yeah, we got full size grip now.
Yeah, I know. Same size slide and barrel length, but just a little bit bigger grip for easier reloads.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what was your question? I kind of interrupted you.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. You wanted to go over your match gun, your 45 then? What's on
Yeah,
it?
sure. So actually, I have it right here.
Right.
I can just show you and kind of talk through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a Glock 45. It's unloaded empty. It's got a practice mag and a dry fire mag. If you don't have one, you should consider getting one.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, Glock 45. I do have a flashlight on there because I'm a huge baby and I apparently can't control 9mm recoil. Lupoid Delta Point Pro for my optic, and it has a flat face trigger. I had a Timney in my other gun. Actually, here's the frame for it. You can see the Timney right there.
Mm-hmm.
But it started malfunctioning on me in my last major match. So the trigger actually stopped resetting in the middle of the stage. So it was almost like I had to. It was like shooting like a single action gun for an entire stage, and it was a real pain in the butt. So I took that out and just put this Apex. I think it's an Apex. Whatever. I bought it for my friend. Flashlight trigger in here, and I've got some grip tape on the back just because, to me, I can talk about this later, but like grip is what differentiates shooters from each other, in my opinion. So this just helps me get the grip that I want to get on it. I have a little mag release, it's like a custom thing that I did. I literally just put some epoxy on the mag release, and it makes it easier to hit. So it keeps it flatter at the bottom, so you're not like releasing it on. You actually got to see it a few times at South Kent where my mag fell out of my gun.
Yeah, because your mag spring.
Well, it was a combination of the mag spring and also like my finger here, because I undercut my trigger guards. So my finger gets up a little bit higher, and it was actually touching the mag release. So when I was applying pressure, it was dropping the mag sometimes. So I fixed that by just keeping a stock mag release and putting some epoxy on it. I don't want to get too long-winded with the gun, but for the most part, all the internals are stock. It's just the trigger's a little bit different, the face of the trigger.
And you have a 2-point MOA Leopold?
Yep, 2.5.
Okay.
Or is it 2? I can't remember. I think
it's one of those. And then they just
the
came out with
one.
this. They came out with the 6 MOA, which is
I'm a fan of the smaller dot for sure.
Yeah. So I think we talked about it, but the Timney is the new hotness nowadays, and I don't know. I've talked to an actual gunsmith about it. He's like, I don't know. I've seen nothing but issues, and you're a high level shooter, and you've had issues with the Timney. And it went down at the Buckeye Blast?
Went down to the Buckeye Blast on the standard stage, unfortunately.
Oof.
The Timney is a phenomenal trigger. So out of the box, you if you want it to feel good, you have to be comfortable modifying them. So I had to take Johnny Glocks has a bunch of instructional videos on YouTube where he teaches you how to do all this stuff. You have to take sandpaper and polish and do all this stuff to the trigger bar, just because it was so rough out of the box. But that little spring that they have to reset the trigger, if you have a really powerful grip on the gun and it's compressing the internals, that spring is not powerful enough to return the trigger out. And that's what was happening to me.
Did you get both? There's 2 springs now, I guess, that come with the Timneys now.
I have the more powerful one in there, and it's still not strong enough, unfortunately.
Okay. That's unfortunate then.
Yep, because it's an amazing break, it's an amazing pull, but to me, reliability trumps everything else.
Well, that's why we shoot Glocks, right? We've got to be. It's got to be reliable. I mean, besides the cost effectiveness of getting into CO with a Glock, it's all about reliability.
Yep.
Even though it's a polyper Wonder Blaster. But you're running a TLR. Was that a TLR 9 or a TLR 7, something like that?
TLR 9.
TLR 9. The thing, I think it actually fits flush on a 34, if I'm correct.
It does. Yeah, because my buddy Dave runs one and it's perfectly flush.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And you're running, I think my new favorite mag pouch. I'm gonna get a couple of these maybe at the end of the season. The XIs.
Yep, the double alpha XIs. They're awesome because before that, I was running when I got into carry optics, when I got into USPSA, I got just the cheapest gear I could find. So I was running like a Safariland belt with like all Safariland like mag pouches and stuff. And I was like, man, these are pretty good. And then I got the double alphas and I was like, oh, so this is what actual quality equipment feels like.
Yeah. And I'm surprised that Safariland would have been the cheapest route, but
Um, it was relatively cheap. You were paying like $30 for a mag pouch. They got good reviews. And I was like, okay.
yeah, especially when so a name like Safariland, they'll replace it. So that's a good thing about it. My only complaint about a Safariland belt is that you've got to use like typically like a special belt hanger.
Yeah, you do, because it's like the 1 3/4 inch instead of the 1.5. Yeah.
That's my only complaint really with the Safari. Well, besides that, it looks a little weird, but
yeah,
okay.
It worked for me. It was fine.
Right, and everyone teach everyone their own. I've gone through a couple different belts, and I'm happy with mine, even though my belt's super expensive now. But
well, I didn't even get a holster hanger until this year. I was just running my gun literally just attached to my belt, like in a like Bob Vogel style,
like a Blade Tech. Yeah.
Yep, I use the Blade Tech.
Yeah, and then you switch to the CR Speed that I'm really interested about.
It's amazing. So I mean, again, you're talking about me going from like very rudimentary equipment to the most advanced stuff you can get, and it was a huge difference. I mean, it definitely probably took a tenth off my draw just because your hand is moving a lot less. So if you watch a lot of like my older videos, it's like I can shoot really well, but my draw speed doesn't look that fast. But now that I have this hanger, it's like I have a draw speed that you would expect from someone that like is a GM, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive. I like it. I like that it's all the functionality of a race holster with a regular Kydex shell. Because you've got all the adjustment. You can cant it, you can pivot a little bit.
Yes, but yeah, and then yeah, you can put whatever Kydex holster you want on there. Yep.
It's muy bueno. Now, who makes your holster?
So my old holster, which was amazing, was made by GX Products, and I highly recommend him. So that's Leif down in, does he live in Kentucky or Tennessee? Anyways, he runs the Kentucky sectional as well as he's doing Area 5 this year, and he's an amazing guy, makes an incredible product. And that was the holster that I was using. I messaged him on, I don't know, a few months ago when I got the flashlight, and I was like, hey man, can you make a holster for a Glock 45 with a TLR9 on it? He was like, I only have the ability to do a Glock 17 with a TLR9, but it will fit your gun. And I was like, meh. So there was this guy who actually lived like literally 20 minutes away from me that was making holsters out of his garage. His name is like Chase. So his company name is like Chase Custom Holsters. And I just went over into his garage with my gun, and he made me a holster while I like sat there and watched, and it was amazing to watch him work. So yeah, that's who made mine. And it's he was able to take that bike lever thing that Leif puts on his and just transfer it onto my new holster. So it's kind of like a blend between GX and then also Chase's holster.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I was wondering, that's an interesting looking holster, and it's got the GX
exactly
block. So it's pretty awesome.
I mean, if you're running stages at full speed, you don't want your gun flying out of your holster like a noob. So
yeah, you don't want to have an adult pick up your gun for you.
I've literally had to say that. I was like, I need an adult to come help me. It's happened to me before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think Rob Epifania had that too. But he had a bungee before he went to a GX. He bungeed his gun into his holster.
Yeah, and that works too. Like whatever people come up with, as long as it's functional.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, what kind of drives you to be at this top level? Is it just that you're a perfectionist and you want to be the best you can be, or is there some other underlying reasons what pushes you?
I don't know. It's kind of a loaded question, so I think it's multifactorial. There's definitely a part of me that, if you talk to like anybody that knows me really well, I'm always striving to be like the best that I absolutely can be in whatever I'm trying to pursue. So like I mentioned it earlier. I mean, before I even got into competition shooting, I was like really into like endurance sports, and I was actually racing bikes for a few years before this. So like I was trying to do that at a very high level. I was spending 20, 25 hours a week in the saddle. My legs were like the size of like oak tree trunks. And I moved out to like Colorado so I could race. So it's like, there was that. And then before that, I played hockey for 16 years growing up. And I played junior A hockey after high school, and I was on contract to do that. So it's just like everything that I do, I try to do like at the highest possible level. And then when you talk about shooting too, there's another factor that comes into that. So it's like, yes, I want to be very good at it, but at the same time, like shooting is a very practical skill to have in life. So many people are out there, you know, carrying guns, or they own guns, and they're like not even good enough to be D-class shooters in USPSA. I would say your average gun owner would be like literally like 10%. Like if you were talking about like the percentile ranking system, which would be, I guess, D-class starts at 2%, but to me, that's just not acceptable. So it's like, if you're going to carry a firearm, and obviously like I'm a huge supporter of the Second Amendment, like everybody should be able to carry a gun if they want to, but it's like me personally, I can't with a clear conscience, like walk around with something, you know, as powerful as a handgun and not be 1000% confident in my abilities to use it. And that's why, you know, one of the big reasons I got into competition shooting in the first place. So those would be like my two main drives. Yes, one, I guess I'm kind of a perfectionist, or I'm just extremely driven. And then two is I want to be skilled in stuff like carrying a gun. So
and yes, being a competitor definitely makes you attend, you know, everyone, it makes anyone who competes better than the national average. It's quite insanely fascinating to see. And you know, even you see the depth of the field too, from anywhere from your first time D-class shooter to your nationally competitive GMs. I mean, they're all better than the the common folk, it seems like. And
oh, absolutely. So my a really good buddy of mine, David Miller, I don't know if you've actually met him. He shoots South Count a lot.
he shoot a
He'll
Glock
usually
as
like,
well.
he shoots a Glock.
I think I met him at that match.
I don't think he was at the classifier match, but
Maybe.
he shoots like all those same matches that I shoot over there, and he ended up becoming like one of my best friends on the West Side. But he is a current law enforcement officer, and he's been in law enforcement for like 30 years, like he's made a career out of it. And I remember him telling me that, you know, because he has to do pistol quals and all that stuff. Are you frozen? I think you might be frozen. No,
No,
you're good.
I'm here.
You know, he had to do pistol quals and all that stuff for work, and it's like, you know, he's maxing out his pistol quals at the police, you know, police department or whatever, and it's like, you know, he's a really good shooter by those standards. And I remember he told me he went to his first USPSA match, and he classed like a low D class, and he was like, it like totally messed with his head, because it's like for years it's like he's an incredible shooter just based off of like the police academy or police department standards, and then he goes to a match and is like bottom of the pack, and he's like, what the hell is going on here? So
Yeah.
just goes to show, like, if you want to get really really good, you need to compete.
Absolutely. And it's only better. Besides that, it makes you spend a lot more money.
Yeah.
You're shooting a lot more. Like, because you think, even though you think like the guy who goes out once a month shoots maybe 300 to 500 rounds once a month, you know, just plinking in their backyard or at the range, you know, they're ballistically masturbating on the wall. And, but, when you,
Total waste of time and resources doing stuff
Mhm.
like that.
But then you think about the guys, you know, who are going to matches, they're going and they're shooting. You're spending maybe pretty much probably about almost 1,000 rounds a month in the good day, you know, on matches, and probably just even in practice alone if you had the resources. But they're a lot better spent resources. Even though local match, I think Chris even posted about this the other day about going to a local match could be much better spending that ammo at a practice session than at the local, but we still go to locals.
Yeah, actually, I messaged him about that post, and because I had a little bit of like disagreeing opinions on that, but that's
I like going because it's a social aspect and then you get to hang with your friends, but you also can work on
well, it's
skills.
yeah, exactly. There's a huge fun component too that like you have to take into consideration.
Yeah. And if it's not fun, why you know, if it wasn't fun, why would we be doing it?
Exactly.
Because I know you'd much rather be spending time with your family, your friends, you know, doing a whole bunch of other things if it wasn't fun.
Right.
Now, you made GM. I'm assuming that was a goal of yours, was to make GM at some point. Now, what's the next goal?
Um, so I'm a huge believer in like having tangible goals that you're striving to, and you're correct in that making GM has been a goal of mine for since I got into USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
But really like that is cool. And like I think when you're like striving towards GM, like everybody's really like it's a huge thing that like people care about a lot. But then once you actually make it there, you realize that like it doesn't matter that much. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain because you know, I was chasing it for 2 years, and it was a really big deal to me when I made it. And then, you know, like literally a week later, I was like, well, I just have this title behind my name now. It's like it doesn't change the shooter that I am. I'm still the same shooter. So it's like, I guess now I care more about winning major matches. So like a goal of mine was to go to the Ohio State Championship and win that. And when I got second place, I was really, really disappointed. It was really aggravating to me that I didn't win that.
Yeah.
So like my next goal, for example, is to go to the Kentucky sectional and win that. And then my goal after that is to go to Area 5 and win that. So it's like I care a lot more now about consistently placing high at major matches.
Yeah, actually showing that that GM next to your name actually means that you're actually the top 5% of our sport.
Exactly. Yep.
Actually put it, yeah, where because there are a lot of I won't be fun of them, but everyone calls them a paper GM when they get the title, but they're middle of the pack or something, and they're really low, and it's like you don't want to. You aren't.
No.
You are the top 5% of this country and shooting ability.
And
And
that's
I'm
the
not.
standard that I want to uphold. I don't want people to think that it's okay to like, oh, you know, you got this thing and now you can just, you know, sit back on your haunches and just relax. Like, no, you need to keep pushing that standard because you're setting the example for everybody else.
And for my viewers, I'm not trying to stroke John's ego. John is a phenomenal shooter. He's got match videos up everywhere. Um, he's a good shooter. Although when you don't have gear issues and crappy calls at matches, it makes things a whole lot better.
This is true, but I mean that stuff happens, and you know I have to just get over it.
Yeah, and speaking of the RO calls, in my opinion, as a actual certified RO, if I 100% couldn't verify that that happened to that wall, I would not have been making that call. There's, you know, because you're taught, well, you're supposed to be taught, is that if you cannot 100% make that, it saw that it happened, it didn't happen.
I totally agree with that, and I saw a video posted by I forget his actual name, but it's like he's 357 Souls on Instagram where he got called on a foot fault. And it's like literally any layman watching that video is like, oh, it might have been a foot fault, may not been a foot fault. So it's like, why is this RO calling him for a foot fault if he's not even sure, you know?
And honestly, the RO with the timer should be worrying about the gun, not exactly his feet. The guy with the tablet should be more worried about what the. I mean, a job. I'm not saying that the job of an RO is not hard, is not easy. I mean, especially when you have a very complex stage, but in my opinion, if you didn't see it happen 100% and without a doubt see that it happened, you shouldn't be making those calls.
Right, I agree.
Because even if your gun didn't have issues with on the standard stage, you would have won the match. And if the guy didn't call you for what was it, a mic on that or two mics?
Yeah, he gave me a mic for shooting through a wall, even though it's a metal wall and my 147 grain bullets, as I posted a picture of, won't even make it through metal walls, let alone leave perfect holes with grease rings.
Did you shoot your own wall then?
I did because I wanted to prove a point. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but
yeah.
Yeah. So John, what is your training schedule like between, you know, the dry fire, the shooting, you know, the working out? How's it all lay out for you?
I'm sure this is like the meat and potatoes of the podcast that most people watching to get better want to know about. So yeah, training schedule. I think first it comes to mindset. So it's like for me, you know, my girlfriend's in the other room probably listening to me talk, and she'd want to hear that like I'm thinking about her all the time, and I do think about her a lot. But I think about shooting all the time. Like it's just something that's always in my mind. I'm thinking about what can I do to get better? What are things that I need to improve on? And what is my training going to look like today? So I try to dry fire every single day. Even on days that I live fire, I'm usually dry firing before I get to the range. And I'm also dry firing on the range, which we can talk about more later. So it's a daily thing for me. No less than like 15 minutes of dry fire. I usually average between like 20 minutes to 45. I try not to go longer than that just because my hands start to get pretty beat up and my elbows get sore. And then I'm live firing once to twice a week on average. It's been more recently just because I've had more free time and I'm trying to really push the envelope a little bit. But like when I start my job here in a couple of weeks, I'm probably gonna be live firing once a week. And then I'm very, very focused when I go to the range. I know exactly what I'm going to do before I even get there. I don't set up practice stages anymore. I just set up like very basic drills with like 2, maybe 3 paper targets. I don't usually set up steel when I'm shooting live just because paper doesn't lie, your hits don't lie. And I'm always trying to look for a very specific spot, like on the target when I'm shooting it. So it's like, I went out to the range the other day. I had literally 2 paper targets. I had an open target and a no shoot. And I was just working on like hitting those coming into position, hitting those on the move, hard transitions, moving on the draw to a tough shot, like the no shoot, and just stuff like that. So it's like, I'm usually setting up really basic stuff when I go to the range now. So it's the dry fire every day. I never practice reloads in live fire. I only do that in dry fire now. So that's just like a little piece of my like shooting training schedule. And then like for me, physical fitness is like the most important part of my life, even more than shooting. So it's like I will work out every single day, like period. I seldom have a day off. And if I do have like an off day, it's like a recovery day where I'll just stretch or like roll out or, just kind of take it easy. But to me, it's like, it like if I don't work out every day, I'll get really like antsy and kind of aggravated. And like, I just will be kind of like an unbearable person to be around. And usually, and then a great thing about working out too is like it warms up your entire body. So I usually get my workout done and then I like to dry fire after just because like my arms and hands and all that are warmed up. And I do a lot of like body weight calisthenic stuff. So it's like I do a lot of pull-ups, push-ups, pretty much working out like a prisoner. I run a lot. And then like we can talk about more about this later too, but it's like I mentioned earlier, like grip strength is to me the most important part of like being a really good shooter. And so I'm always looking for ways to like kind of build my grip strength. And so it's like I do literally a shit ton of pull-ups. Like if I'm doing like if it's a pull-up day for me, I won't I won't ever do less than 100 pull-ups. So that would be like the bare minimum that I do. And I like to think that like, at least in the shooting world, like no one's going to have better grip strength or like grip endurance than me. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. That's just like kind of a short answer to it.
No, that's a good answer. Have you ever tried a Captains of Crush?
Yeah, I actually have 3 of those.
Okay. Have you beaten level 2 yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I can close a 2.5 pretty easily. And I can almost close a 3.
You and Bob Vogel, sir.
That's where I learned that was from him. So when I was first getting into shooting, like Vogel was like my unicorn that I was like kind of trying to chase. So I picked up a lot of style things from Vogel. A lot of like I'd say my shooting style is a blend of Vogel combined with like the movement of JJ Rakaza.
You almost look like JJ Rakaza. Probably look a little bit better than JJ Rakaza, to be honest with you.
That's very sweet of you to say. But JJ's my camera's a little blurry. JJ's Filipino and I'm half Filipino, so that's where the look similarities come in.
Yeah. Wow. Now, you said you're doing a bunch of bodyweight calisthenics. Do you do that in like the garage or out in the yard, or did you go to a gym?
I don't have a gym membership. For example, yesterday I went out to my garage. I did 300 box jumps and 300 push-ups, 350 push-ups actually. And then that was my second workout of the day. In the morning, I did 250 kettlebell swings. Kettlebell swings are also a great way to build grip strength. And they're also just like a phenomenal like, whole body workout for your posterior chain.
Now, how heavy are your kettlebells, to be honest? I
only have a 62-pound kettlebell.
That's a heavy kettlebell, sir.
Yeah, but you get used to it. And it's like stuff like that. I'm always looking for ways to like maximize my time when it comes to workouts. So it's like I do a lot of burpees, a lot of kettlebell stuff, a lot of like whole body stuff. Like running is a great way to do it too, whether you're doing, you know, a 12-mile long run or doing 100-meter, you know, repeats on the track.
Yeah. And you know, it's the weirdest thing to ever find during this pandemic was like exercise equipment at home. Like all the kettlebells would always be sold out, or the dumbbells would be all
Yeah.
gone. It's like, because I don't know. I recently got a gym membership, but before then I was trying to find like a couple things of equipment, you know, simply just have at the house and work out at home. And it was just like, it's always sold out or they're so damn expensive. And it's like,
Yeah. I was trying to get a used one, a kettlebell on eBay for a while, and just couldn't get one that was in the size that I wanted, or where I wasn't paying like $100 for shipping. So I just kind of bit the bullet and just bought one from like a kettlebell company, and I think I paid like 120 bucks for it. But it's really like it's an investment, you know. So it's like it's convenient to have. I can work out whenever I want, and I don't have to pay a gym membership every month.
yeah, true that. I like going to the gym. I'm pretty bad about life's been hectic, so I kind of been slacking on it, but I do pretty well at staying active for the most part. But I used to do a lot of cardio at the gym, and I need to up my game and do some more other than just cardio.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's a great thing about, you know, the outdoors. It's like you don't need a gym membership to do cardio, really. Like you just go to your like middle school track, or you just literally go outside and go for a run.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been, for me, it's odd. I can run, you know, on the elliptical or a treadmill and be fine. But like, as soon as I get outside, like the dry mouth shows up and it's like, I'm actually running and I'm like having a hard time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always been a thing for me. So, mhm. But anyway, next question we've got for you is how do you prepare for, you know, matches like local or like regional matches and then like nationals? Is there something you do like coming up to those matches, like maybe a month out, a week out kind of thing?
Um, so the way I prep for local matches is kind of the same way I prep for major matches, I guess, with just like a small difference.
Mm-hmm.
Local matches I don't really even prep for anymore. I just, you know, kind of show up to them. I'll talk more about major matches because that's, I guess, more relevant. So for me, the only thing that really changes in my schedule for major matches is I'll try to live fire more the week leading up to it. But that's really the only difference. So like I said, you know, I'm live firing like 1 to 2 times a week. Before a major match, if I can, I'll try to get in like a third session, preferably like the day before the match. Just so like the muscle memory and like the recoil impulse is fresh in your brain. That's the biggest thing like you get from live fire, in my opinion, is just like 1, dot tracking or sight tracking, and 2 is your brain just like being fresh with that recoil impulse. Just knowing what to expect. Like if you live fire on Monday and you're not shooting a major match until Sunday, it's like there's a lot of time in there for your mind to kind of forget how to, you know, track recoil or deal with the recoil. So you're much more likely to like have flinch in your shots or like be pulling shots or something like that. So yeah, that's really the only thing that changes with me. I still, you know, try to dry fire every day. I don't change anything other than just shooting more live rounds, I guess.
Yeah. Which is it's pretty impeccable, but it's I don't I want next year. Well, I've got 2 majors this year, and hopefully I'll see you at both of them.
Which ones are you shooting?
Ryan Rocks and our sectional. I'll be both of those.
Yep, I'm
And
signed up
then
for those.
next year will be Ryan Rocks. Well, if ammo comes back, Ryan Rocks sectional area 5.
Okay.
Because area 5 is in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So I'll definitely be able to shoot area 5 next year as long as my schedule allows for it.
I'll call in sick for you. Yeah, I'm gonna shoot area 5. And it's gonna be there for 2 years, which I'm ecstatic about. That we'll be able to host it in less than an hour drive to a major match.
That's how sectional was for me last year, and it's a huge game changer being able to sleep in your own bed the night before. And because I mean that was indoor, which was 45 minutes from my apartment. So it was just super convenient, and it was probably one of my better performances at a major match because like I'm actually well rested, you know, the day of it, where it's like generally when I sleep in a hotel bed, like I never really get like good sleep going into the match.
Yeah,
So it's like you're more apt to make like mental mistakes and like have small mental errors.
absolutely. And there's nothing better than your own bed. Nothing.
I agree.
That is definitely for sure. Now, when you're at a major match, do you have like a nutritional plan that you stick to, or do you not eat beforehand, or?
That is so the actual way that you go about your day of shooting, I think is massively important. It's almost as important as like the preparation you put in to like shooting a major match.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I have a very regimented routine that I go through on major match day. So it's like if I'm in a hotel, let's say shooting starts at 8 a.m., like the shooters meeting is at 8 a.m. I'll get up at 5:30 in the morning and I will dry fire usually for 30 to 45 minutes. And then I'll eat the same thing that I eat every day of my life, which is a bowl of oatmeal with a banana and peanut butter. So I'll like pack all that into my duffel bag and then I'll,
Mm-hmm.
I'll make that in the hotel room. I'll eat that. I'll make sure I'm checked out in time. And then I like to get to the, so again, if it's 8 a.m., I like to get to the range at like 7:15. I'll re-walk the stages that I've already walked the day before. And that's a huge thing too. When I first started shooting major matches, I would just show up the morning of and like try to walk the stages the same morning. And it was just horrible. It's horrible for stage planning. You
Mm-hmm.
could do that for locals, obviously. But for majors, I would highly recommend you get there the day before to walk stages just because like you're not pressed for time. And if you have the night to sleep on the stages too, your mind will actually do a better job of like converting those into your long-term memory. So they're much easier to run the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll walk all the stages and then shooting starts at 8, and then my diet for the day is I like to eat a lot of really small snacks throughout the day. So it's like I might not eat my first protein bar until like 10 a.m. and then I'll have a Cliff Bar at like 11 a.m. and then I'll have like half of a turkey sandwich at noon, and I'll never eat the lunches that the matches provide because I mean that's just like you're setting yourself up for failure if you do that. If you just eat like fucking pulled pork and beans and like cornbread, like what kind of a match lunch is that? It's like you need to treat it like an actual like athletic event. So it's like if you eat all that shit,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna be tired for the rest of the day, and then like your second half of the day you're gonna suck. So I bring all my own food in a cooler and I just like kind of snack on it through the whole day. And then obviously like drinking a lot of water is really important too, especially like when I was shooting Buckeye Blast, it was freaking 90 degrees and you're just like sweating the entire day. So like I went through like 4 liters of water just during that match.
Mm-hmm. Water is important. Now, do you use like an electrolyte supplement as well besides water, or?
I don't, but looking back on that, so that was a lesson that I learned. I'm going to start bringing electrolyte tabs to the matches just because I was sweating so much. And like one of the things I learned from like my endurance sports days is there gets to a certain point if you start sweating a lot, um, however much water you drink doesn't really matter if you're losing all of your electrolytes. So it's like you need to have electrolytes to hold the water in your body. Otherwise, like it's coming straight out your sweat pores.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah,
going to start bringing tabs to my next match.
there you go with your beat up water bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so you drink a lot of water as it is, so you don't really need to prehydrate, but do you recommend a lot of people to prehydrate before a major match so they have ample amount of water in their system?
I would 1000% recommend that, especially like, somebody who's, I guess, a medical professional now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like when you wake up in the morning, even not on match days, the first thing you should do is chug a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
So when I wake up in the morning, as soon as I brush my teeth, the first thing I do is I'll drink half of this liter. So that's, 250 mils,
Mm-hmm.
just straight into your system because you actually lose a lot of water while you're sleeping. And then, if you pee in the middle of the night, pee again in the morning, you're losing even more fluids. So it's like when you wake up in the morning, you're your most dehydrated point of the day. So it's like you need to get fluids back in your body immediately. And a lot of people will start their day off with like drinking coffee, which dehydrates you even more because it's a diuretic, which means it just makes you pee more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what you really should be doing, especially like on a major match day where you're going to be sweating your balls off all day, is just chugging as much water as you can when you first wake up in the morning.
Mm-hmm. I am one of those people. I will at least get 16 ounces of water in me first thing, even before breakfast. It's like
Yep.
I've got a cup sit next to my bathroom sink just for this. It's like crank on the cold water, fill the cup up, down
Yeah.
it, and start the day. I learned
Yep.
that. I think that was maybe about 6 months ago. I picked that up from a friend, and it was more for a weight loss thing. It's just to get yourself like full, like
Yep.
the feeling of full just by chugging that water.
Yeah, that'll definitely do that.
And it's been working out pretty well. I mean, not on the weight loss, but the eating less part at least has been helpful due to the fact of drinking the water.
Right.
And yeah, definitely. I enjoy hydrating. I almost exclusively just drink water and coffee now. I don't drink a lot of. I mean, I'll have milk, but it's not like I'm drinking a bunch of juice or carbonated soda, beverages and whatnot. It's mostly water and 1 cup of coffee a day.
Yeah, no, that's honestly what you should be drinking. It's crazy too, because again, like I don't want to keep repeating myself. Like coming from like an endurance sports world where it's like everybody has their nutrition dialed in, and then coming over into competitive shooting and seeing like people drinking, like my buddy Dave is, if he ever watches this, is gonna laugh his ass off because it's like this guy like lives on fucking Mountain Dew, and he's an incredible shooter, and this guy like eats McDonald's all the time, like drinks Mountain Dew, and like his nutrition plan is like the exact opposite of like what I would recommend to anybody, but he does really well. And like you see a lot of guys doing that in the shooting world. They just like they eat like shit, they drink like shit, they just like take generally like not great care of their bodies. I'm not saying this about Dave because actually he works out a lot, but a lot of people just don't take care of themselves and they shoot really well. But it's like I think they would be able to shoot a lot better if like their bodies were more in tune with their shooting ability.
Absolutely. And it's just a little, and that's half of the sport too, is, everyone sees the big fat guy who can shoot really well. Right. And they're
Yeah,
like, well, if he can do,
Butler.
yeah. Like they see that guy, oh, I could do that because I'm fat. I mean, there's those people who shoot really well. Like even Matt Hopkins is phenomenal too.
Right.
And he's a bigger guy.
Yeah.
But because he knows how to move with that big body.
Yeah.
But I mean, it definitely would help to be in peak performance shape,
But like you can't tell me that, and I'm not, fat shaming or whatever. It's just you
Mhm.
can't tell me that those people wouldn't add, like 5% to their overall classification or their overall scores if they dropped like 100 pounds, because it's like you'd be able to just, I mean, it's just physics. You'd be able to move so much faster, get from point A to point B. You'd be able to slow down faster. You'd be able to explode out of position faster. It's just that's like a fact.
Yes, it's science based. I mean,
Yes.
your BMIs, guys, your BMI. But yeah, and I don't know. I've been going on this nutrition journey. Like beginning of COVID, I lost 25 pounds, and I kind of got that
That's
back.
awesome.
Yeah, and I kind of gained some of it back, but I've been working to get it down. But it's definitely about mindset over mindset, habits, and attitudes. I really did well when I first lost all that weight. I was counting calories, and it was helpful. Just being like, oh, I can have this, and then I'm done. I can't have any more. Which is one of those things. If I put the roadblocks in there and say, well, I can only have so much of this and so much of this, it tells, because I'm strict enough. But if I give myself the ocean, I'm very bad at it.
Right.
But yeah. Now, you said you have Kentucky is this weekend, correct?
Yep, coming up.
Looks like it's going to be a stacked match. I haven't looked at squatting at all, so I'm assuming there's going to be heat.
It's going to be very competitive. There's some very good shooters there.
Have you looked at squads at all and seen who's you're going to be directly competing with?
So I think most of my direct competition will be against, there's a few other GMs there. Trace Decker is really good. Scott Rader is going to be there. He was just at Buckeye Blast last weekend. He's a really good shooter. Hopkins will be there again. Who else? And then there's a ton of like other masters that obviously, could do really well too, that like I haven't personally heard of or know that well.
Right. So that'll be good. After Kentucky, you've got Area 5, you said. Are you shooting nationals this year?
So after Kentucky, I think I have Ryan Rocks, sectional, Area 5, and then the Ben Stayer match in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin sectional.
Oh, yep. I forgot that the Michigan matches were both in July.
Yeah. So I'm not signed up for nationals right now just because the month of October, I'm on my trauma rotation. And it's like one of the most time consuming, like rigorous rotations you do during your residency training. a lot of 24-hour shifts and stuff like that. So I highly doubt I'll be able to get 3-4 days off to shoot nationals. I don't think it, like, they would literally laugh at me if I asked for that time off. So unless like my schedule comes out and I somehow have that time off, I'm probably not gonna be able to shoot nats this year, which is really sad.
Did you at least get on the wait list or
I haven't even like tried to, just because like I
oh,
think the chances of me being able to shoot it are so slim.
gotcha. By the time, and maybe by October, by the time you find your schedule, you'll actually have it off, and then you'll just, people have dropped from the wait list, and you'll be like, click, oh, you're
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Now, Nationals was 2020 Nationals was your first Nationals, correct?
Correct.
How did you enjoy that experience?
It was very eye-opening for me. So, I've been shooting for a little over a year when I shot my first nats, and like I'd shot a handful of major matches going into that. So like I kind of knew I kind of like got the idea of what a major match was, like what it was like to shoot it. But nationals is like, it's a completely different ball game because it's, 3 days of shooting. And that like all of the best people in the country are there. And just shooting a frost proof too has its own set of unique challenges. I mean, like you have the sun, you have these weird torrential downpours that come out of nowhere and just like dump on you while you're shooting. So yeah, it was unique. It was unique. But I enjoyed it a lot.
So you must have shot AM, PM, AM, didn't you?
Correct. Just because I had a flight to catch on the last day.
Yeah. No, yeah, and that's pretty much. It seemed like it only rained when you were shooting. From all my friends who shot the other rotation, they barely got rained on.
So, I don't like making excuses about that or anything, but I would say the AM, PM, AM shooters for particularly 2020 Nats were at a pretty significant disadvantage compared to the other time slots, just because like there was, God, I remember there was one stage, it's posted on my Instagram, where my dot was completely washed out. Like it was raining so hard, water actually got into the light emitter, and my entire window was just like this red freaking starburst thing. And so I had to point shoot that entire stage, and it had swingers on it and like far poppers, and I was like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
Yeah.
I can imagine that would not be fun, sir. No,
it was not.
No, would not be fun. Now, what was your favorite stage from 2020 Nationals?
It's kind of hard for me to remember all of them, but I mean, there was a lot of good stages there, obviously. Probably, again, I think it's posted on my Instagram, and it's probably one of my favorites just because I did really well on it. But it's all classic targets. It was the one that was like sponsored by Vortex Optics, and you had a far classic out surrounded by like two poppers that were probably like 25 yards, mini poppers. So yeah, I don't know. They were all good. I don't have any like particular favorites from it.
Yeah. Now, how much did you dislike the bobber behind the steel with a steel plate behind it?
That was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Everybody says that.
Like I put 4 rounds through that hole, having no idea if like the target was inside or not. I was just like, I'm gonna put 4, and I planned this out in my stage plan because I can't fucking see it. So it's like I'm just gonna shoot through that hole 4 times, and hopefully 2 of my hits are somewhere on paper. And every time you hit it, you don't know if you're missing the hole because it's all steel. Like the surrounding backplate is also steel. So it's like, did they go through the hole? I don't know. Probably. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. How did you end up? Do you remember how you ended up on that target?
Yeah, it was fine. Like I had like an Alpha Charlie on it or something. Like literally two of my 4 hits were on it. So I was like, okay.
Well, I kind of one of those things. It's kind of like you have to plan for a disaster factor. It's almost in your stage plan, just like throwing 4 here and moving on.
That was also a stage too where the sun was like directly in my face. So it was like you had the fact that you couldn't see what you're shooting at through the hole, plus the sun's in your eyes. And that was the first time I ever put black tape on my optic, because it actually helped like block the sun from coming through the glass. So the dot was clearer like against the black tape, and then I just kind of left that tape on there forever.
There you go. That's a good idea. That was a good idea. I'm a little disappointed in our section match this year, since we're only letting only 2 days of shooting, 1 day for staff and 1 day for competitors. Is no bueno.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, because then everyone's going to be crammed onto one day pretty much. Or then you're going
Right.
to have competitors shooting on staff day that are not happy about that.
Well, I did that for Ohio sectional. I will never shoot on staff day ever again. It's terrible.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because then
If you have a bad RO or somebody who doesn't like you, like you're stuck with that guy for the entire day.
Yep. But it kind of seems like it seems at least like on staff day, it's more like a big local match at that point because everyone's kind of passing things around, and
Yeah.
which could be good for some people and not so great for competitors who actually need to like shoot it like a true major, but just need to shoot it on staff day because of scheduling issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've been talking about this for a little bit, grip, how we've been talking about how grip's the most important kind of thing for shooting, right?
Yeah. You want me to
Now,
go into that a little bit?
yeah, go ahead. Deep dive into that.
And I'm fine with that just because like some people think sight alignment or some people think like trigger press is the most important part. For me, everybody has their own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
For me, grip is hands down the most important part of being able to shoot a handgun very well, especially at a high level. And this is like what I talked about earlier, where like my style is a little bit of Vogel combined with like Rikaza combined with like even like Jay Beal, who is just an incredible shooter who's going to be world famous in probably a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So the grip aspect, like I run a Glock 45, right? So it's like it's a relatively snappy gun compared to like people that run a 34. And I would not be able to run this gun if I could not grip it the way that I wanted to, just because the recoil would be so snappy and like the impulse would be just fucking annoying as shit to deal with. If you have a great grip too, if you can like grip the gun so it doesn't move at all, your trigger press is much more forgiving. So it's like, you know, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, or if I'm just speaking like a different language, but
No, yeah, I'm
if
listening.
you have
Yep,
a
I get you.
if you have a relatively loose grip on the gun, when you pull the trigger back, the sights might move everywhere, you know, just from the force of the trigger going back. If your grip, especially with your support hand, is rock solid, that gun, even if you're slapping the trigger, the sights should not move at all. And that's one of the beautiful things about dry fire too, is it's like, especially if you have a dry fire mag, you're getting a true trigger press. And if your grip is, you know, if it's on, like the dot doesn't move at all. And I try to explain to people like what I'm seeing when I'm actually shooting, like during a match. It's almost like the way that I can grip the gun, it's almost like shooting an open gun where like my dot barely moves. So a lot of like Stager and like other guys talk about they're seeing like a flash, like they're painting the target with their dot. My dot is barely moving. And like I have a 18-pound recoil spring in my gun. So it's like it cycles so hard and so fast. Any dot movement that there is, it's like it's back on target like immediately, just because it's lightning fast. And I like that a lot. Like I don't like the concept of like your dot just fucking going all over the place and you having to like time the dot when it comes back into the A zone. I'd rather just have it where my grip is so solid that if I'm in the A zone for that first shot, it's sure as shit going to be in the A zone for the second shot, because like that dot is barely going to move. The only time where I'm really slowing down is on farther targets, like maybe farther than like 12, 15 yards, where I'm confirming that like my dot is where I want it to be for the follow-up shot. And yeah, this is actually where I'm running into issues with my guns, where it's like the Timney, for example, is malfunctioning because I have so much pressure from the sides, like from my wrist camming into the gun, where it's compressing the internals to where that Timney can't reset. And like if I showed you an empty frame with no slide on it or anything, like I would physically be able to show you, like if we turn the frame sideways and you were looking into the gun, like I'm significantly like compressing the frame of the Glock when I have my grip on it.
Right.
So I mean, it's pretty much how Vogel describes it. Like I am as high up on that beaver tail as I can. Like I have a nice fold over my hand every time, and I won't start shooting a stage until I have the grip that I want. So if I botch my draw, I will adjust my hand a little bit. And like I'll take an extra 0.2 of a second to get my grip absolutely perfect before I start shooting. So it's like my strong hand is super high up into that beaver tail, and then my support hand is very far forward and like camming into the gun. And it's like there is almost zero pressure coming from like the bottom of my hands. It's like all from the top part of my hands going into the top part of the gun. And Yeah, like I want to have the grip to where when I'm shooting, I want there to hardly be any like muzzle rise.
Hmm.
So to me, like that's the most important thing.
Now, is your 18? You said you're using an 18-pound recoil spring. Is that heavier than stock then?
I think stock might be 17 pounds. I
Okay.
can't remember. It's either 17 or 18, but I tried to just get like a stock recoil spring. I've tried lighter ones too, like the 15 pound,
Hmm.
and I don't like the delay that it takes for the slide to come back forward. I like the instantaneous, just like back and forth,
Right.
which is like literally contrary to most people that you will talk to. Most people like having a lighter spring, they think that it creates less bobble when the slide comes forward and like the muzzle of the gun does this.
Hmm.
Well, if you have a super solid grip, there should be no muzzle bobble. Like I think I have like a very like minuscule amount of it. And that's one of the reasons why I like shooting the shorter slide too, is it's like there's a lot less mass on top for like slide bobble and stuff like that to happen. Like you can imagine if you took a slide that was 3 feet long and that thing was cycling back and forth, the front of that slide is going to be doing this like an elephant trunk if you just extrapolate it out into like a larger object.
Hmm.
And essentially, like to me, that's what shooting a Glock 34 is like. Like it's you have a longer slide that you don't need because sight radius doesn't matter in carry optics.
Hmm.
That's just causing more slide bobble up front. So it's like if you can deal with the recoil of a shorter slide, like you have a lot more benefits to reap. Your transitions are crisper because you have less weight on the end of the gun, which is going to stop you from like over transitioning. And it's a lighter gun too. Like I like my gun to be relatively light. Like I want it to be balanced. That's why I have the flashlight. But like that's one of the things that I love about Glocks is it's a super light gun, and I don't feel like I'm like driving a fucking boat when I'm like transitioning from target to target, like with a CZ or a steel gun. So
Hmm.
it's like that's the beautiful thing. It all comes down to like grip strength, where if you have the grip strength to deal with a light polymer gun with a relatively short slide, I think you should do it because all the other benefits like transitions, lack of slide bobble, just a lighter overall firearm far outweigh just having like a heavier slide or like a longer slide to like make the recoil seem softer.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I chose the 17 instead of getting a 34
Yeah,
because
a
I
lot of people
compete.
are doing that.
And I didn't see any 34s on our squad. And we had a lot of Glock shooters on our South Kent squad. No
Hmm.
one had a 34. We had a couple Legions, but all the CO guys were using Glocks essentially.
Right.
And I think the nice thing is you can get a 17 and for like hell of a less money than a 34, even
Yeah,
if you went with an MOS gun. I think my
just because they're
my
so common.
yeah, my last gun, I went and actually got it milled. Did you get I'm assuming you got your 19 and your 45 milled by JagerWorks
Yep.
since they were like literally in your back door.
Yeah. I actually just went over there with my slide for what I'm building to be my my primary gun. I just had that one milled because right now I'm just transferring the slide between the two frames.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, your works does my slide milling in there. Awesome.
yeah. I was looking at them, but then I think their wait time was too long for me. I don't know. I don't know why exactly I didn't go with them because they're only 40 minutes that way for me. Because
Yeah,
where I live, it's muy bueno. You don't have to ship things at that point.
correct.
And be like, it's cheaper for me to drive it. It'll cost me the $4 to drive it there than it will be to mail it and
Right.
have to go to, which is so dumb. Our postal service, it's got to go to Grand Rapids to go back down to Kalamazoo. It's like stupid.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, especially well at that, like I said, at that point, I'll just drive it over there.
Right.
But anything's nice around here. I mean, the best part about living in Michigan is you can use your hand and tell people where you live.
Hmm. This is true.
I mean, I think everyone thinks we do that, but it is kind of fun. It's like, oh, I live about there or there.
Right.
But yeah. Now, this is one of my favorite questions I ask some of my guests. What is something that current John would like to tell past John about shooting?
Get lower.
Get lower.
Get lower. Um, when I first started shooting, I was doing it naturally just because like of my athletic background, like playing hockey for 16 years, like being low is like, if you're not low, you're going to get your shit rocked. Um, and I remember like coming into my first match and like, I'm just super low, like exploding and like just moving really aggressively. And over time, I actually stopped doing that because I like all the like my local studs that I was watching shoot were just like kind of standing up and just like shooting. And I'm like, oh, well, they're really good. They're way better than me. I should do what they're doing. And so I stopped getting low. So like I had it right from the beginning. And then for like the course of probably a year, and you can watch like all my old videos on Instagram, like I'm much more upright when I'm shooting. And then I would say like literally it was this year where I really started to like refocus on like getting super low. And it's much better for shooting on the move, getting out of positions fast, accelerating fast, and just being more stable like in your shooting position. So yeah, I wish I could go back and just say just continue to stay low. Like don't change that.
Yes, exactly. I think definitely, um, I definitely think that being low is a lot better than the gopher everyone will like to do. They'll get low when they're moving and then they'll stand up in the position.
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense. And then you're wasting time to get low again to move again.
Especially how they'll load up. And it's now I haven't been doing this long. I think I shot my fifth or sixth match was earlier this month of USPSA. And you find a lot of things you're like, people really still do that stuff. Like, I haven't been in the sport that long, but I'm like, people still do that where they run, get low, and then they'll pop up, and then because you can watch them when you're shooting with them, because then they'll get low, and then they'll run again. It's like, did I do that? But then you did. I know I did that, but it's like, I don't know. I've been lucky because I'm such a student of the sport, even though I haven't been in it that long. It's been very beneficial to watch and learn and cut out years of struggle, just years of struggle by getting instruction and following the right kind of people and learning through the power of the internet.
Absolutely. Always a student. That's how you keep getting better.
Yeah, that is true. Always a student. I like that word and I don't like that word because usually on the like when it comes from like the other side of shooting, they're all like, "Oh, I'm always like instructors are like, I'm always a student." I'm like, how many classes did you take, or how much did you actually go out and like take some more education or learn or actually learn from something else?
Yeah.
But in competition shooting, it's absolutely a thing because you go out and you watch people and you write notes. Like, I don't know, I take a notebook with me to a match and I will write things down either about my shooting so I can remember it later, or I'll write about something somebody else did that I liked, or like how they did that target array, and I'll be like, I'll ask them about it and get some information of why they did that and get the thoughts and the whys behind they did something, because sometimes you don't actually think about it, like coming into a position on an easier target, or they coming on a more difficult target to leave on the easier target or something like that, and you just
Yeah, I do that too. I think anybody who's like consistently getting better is doing something like that. I just have a notepad in my phone where I'll jot things down, like just little things that might help me or things that I see that might be better to implement in training. That's why I follow so many like different shooters on Instagram, just because it's like, even like if they're not as good as a shooter as me, like they still might be doing something that I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing that I might steal or like take that away. And it's like, again, it all comes down to like stealing little nuggets where you can get them.
Yes, always. You got to be always looking for the little nuggets because your competitors are finding those nuggets.
Right.
And it comes back to even like dry firing. You've got to dry fire because you know your competitors are, and you can't slack, because the day you take off is the day that they're putting in extra effort and gaining miles, inches, which turn into the miles on match day.
Absolutely.
But sorry, I had to look at my third screen over here because I've got.
Oh, you're fine, man.
That's usually where I got all my notes. And now throughout your shooting career, not necessarily sponsors, but who have been like your biggest mentors / supporters in the sport?
Honestly, it's going to sound kind of, cheesy, but I keep going back to like my buddy, Dave Miller. Yeah. And probably nobody who's listening, unless they're like local to Southwest Michigan, even like knows who I'm talking about. But He's, been a really big supporter of mine. He's helped me like troubleshoot a lot of issues that I've had, like when I'm trying to like work on my guns or whatever. He's just like a guru of knowledge. He's really good with his hands. So when I've had like, I can come to him saying like, hey, my gun's doing this and I don't know how to fix it. He'll like sit down with me and like figure out how to like work through it. He also has his own shooting range, which I've mostly trained at for the last year and a half, which is really nice because he lives like 20 minutes from me, or he used to. I moved now.
Yeah. Moved to the other side of the state.
Yeah, so I don't really have anywhere to shoot as of right now, which is kind of shitty. But yeah, he's just been a really good guy, a really good friend of mine, and we've traveled a lot to matches together, and he's made competitive shooting like a really fun part of my life, or like one of the people that has. So yeah, he'd be, I don't know, my biggest person to give a shout out to. Sponsors, like I've got a couple, but it's mostly just for financial reasons, like Blue Bullets. I don't want to sound arrogant, but like I win quite a bit, so it's like it ends up being financially a good decision to use them as my bullet. And then Johnny Glocks is like my other sponsor, and I get a pretty significant discount when I'm getting stuff from him, which is honestly kind of seldom, because it's like once you get a trigger set up, you don't really need anything else.
Yeah, and I've been watching a lot of Johnny's stuff lately, surprisingly, about the Timney and how he's
Yep.
installing them, and or even like his functional Fridays where he goes and talks about like the specific part of the gun, like the recoil assembly and how the trigger housing and all these things coincide together.
Yep. He's a great source of information for that if you're more of a do-it-yourselfer.
Mm-hmm. And he puts the science kind of behind it, which is nice. Even though he, his business is selling you custom competition or combat Glock triggers. I mean, he's willing to show you the DIYs, which is
Yep.
pretty cool.
It is super cool.
It is. Now we're getting near the end of our show here today, but what are things that people can either start doing or stop doing to get better?
Oh God, that's like an endless question.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's just so many right answers. I'll go with things people can start doing first, and that's the easy way to say it is to just dry fire more, but I don't think that's a great answer, because I'm a huge person who like believes in focus training. So it's like even every single rep that I do in dry fire, I try to do it perfectly. Like that's why I don't dry fire for sometimes more than like 20 minutes if I'm not really feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Every single draw, like I'll visualize the draw in my mind before I do it. Every single transition, like I do it with purpose. I do it as hard as I can. I don't believe in just like, fucking taking your gun out and just pointing it at different spots and just like, oh, I'm going to point it over here now and try to get some good trigger presses. No, it's like when the buzzer goes off in dry fire, I treat it like I'm shooting like my own like mini stage for points.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that people can start doing more, just being more disciplined and focused while they're dry firing, because you want to build good habits during dry fire, and you certainly don't want to build bad habits. And it's really easy to build bad habits if you're not taking it seriously. One thing that people can stop doing is, it's a really basic one, I guess. In carry optics, it's really easy to like look at your hits after you shoot, just because you should be target focused when you're shooting a dot.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you should still be calling your shots. You shouldn't be like looking on paper to make sure that your shots went where you wanted them to, because that wastes so much time. Like you need to just be calling your shots based off of where the dot is. So don't look on paper to see if your hits are there or not. You should get to the point in your skill level where you can just, based off of where your sights were or where they were aligned, whether or not your hits are a alpha or whether they're delta or Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I wanted to say real quick too was, oh my God, it's gonna escape me. Oh, don't double tap targets.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool thing. Like it sounds cool on video, like when you can just get like 13 splits. I mean, so I'm gonna follow that up with, don't double tap targets unless you can clearly see, like call each of those shots.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Steger calls it like predictive versus reactive shooting. So that's like in your walkthrough, like you're looking at an open target that's 12 yards away and you're like, I'm going to shoot it, I'm going to shoot it that fast. But in reality, when you're actually shooting the stage, you might be coming into that target, like, and it's a new position. You might have to shoot it like, pa, you know? But if you already have it in your mind, well, I'm just going to double tap this target, you might throw 2 shots at it and they might be like an alpha mic. So I try to make sure I have a great dot picture for every single shot that I squeeze off. If that makes any sense. I think Christian Seiler talks about that too in a podcast where it's like he doesn't have super fast splits, but he's the best shooter in the country. I think Eric Raffel talks about like you only need 25 splits to be a national champion, but then people are for whatever reason are like obsessed with getting their splits like 15 and under, and really like it doesn't matter. Like you're saving time and your movement and transitions, not your splits. So I don't think I'm like, I used to shoot really fast splits, but I think I've slowed those down a lot just to make sure that I'm getting alphas. And I've made up the time in my transitions and my movement. So that's my other nugget.
Yeah, and I think that Ben calls it, predictive and reactive. JJ will call it attack and control targets. Everyone's got different kind of different meaning words for the same kind of thing that they're talking about. Like, yeah. But I definitely agree that splits do get chicks, but not in a stage. I mean,
they don't get overall wins.
Yeah. Only raw time does, right? Is that how we work for that? We go for raw time?
Honestly, it's a better indicator of shooting ability, in my opinion, is people's raw times.
Yeah, I shot the local we shot, I think, at the beginning of the month. We had a guy, he was heat and open, but he shot like in 91 seconds, and then the next guy for CO, the first guy for CO was like at 110 seconds or something like that. It was
pretty significant time difference.
It is, but shooting major power factor also in the overall winner did have a bunch. The alpha count was definitely lower, and the mic count was pretty significant. But it was still a good match. That was still a good match.
For Ohio, for example, my overall time was 200 seconds, which was 3 seconds off of the fastest overall time, which was 197. You also have to remember that like I was shooting almost like single action on the standard stage, so just eating up a ton of time. But I was still shooting like 83.5% alphas, which to me is very acceptable. You definitely don't want to drop below like 80% for your amount of alphas that you're shooting. I'd say like 85% is a good number to like be striving for, but you don't want to be taking all day to do that.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to be you don't want to be pecking for alphas, but you need to get your alphas as fast as you possibly can.
Yep.
Because that's the name of the game, points divided by time.
Simple.
Yeah, that is definitely the game. Well, John, like I said, I appreciate you coming on. This has been a blast for me. Where can the people find you?
I pretty much just like the only platform I have for shooting is my Instagram. So it's just Surgical Precision GM is my Instagram name. Or you can just type in John Chinchen, which is my actual name.
Boom. That's where we have it, people. Like I said, John, thanks again for coming on, sir. It's been a blast. We'll definitely have to bring you back on later in the year so we can get some more tidbits out of you, because I know everyone got some beautiful nuggets out of this, because I know I did. But like again, guys, thanks you guys for all watching. I appreciate you. Until the next time, get out and do the things. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.